Saturday night's main event, Duke and John Shire against Houston and Kelvin Sampson, a rematch of last year's Sweet 16 in which the Blue Devils won 54 to 51. Of course, a national championship would be the first in Kelvin Sampson's illustrious coaching career. Duke, although they are 8-2 in their last 10 Final Four games, but this is the first with John Shire as the head coach. To break it all down, I'm going to welcome back Chris Walker and Isaac Trotter. Trotter, let me start with you right off the bat. Last year's game was a defensive, grinded out battle where points were hard to come by. This is a vastly different offensive team for Duke. Are you expecting a similar pace, or should we get ready for a lot more points in this one?
I'm kind of expecting a grinder. I don't know what Chris feels about that, or we'll kind of get into it. But I think both of these teams can really sit down and guard each other. I think Duke is a team that they force a lot of isolation possessions. They're going to force a lot of jumpers. Not going to get much at the rim against them. Houston, conversely, kind of going up against a Duke team that doesn't have a point guard. Like Duke's kind of skated through that throughout the whole year. Is this the game that it comes back and bites them? I'm very curious to see just how this game plays out. The chess matches is going to be really fun. Obviously, we got the old versus young too, right? Houston, just a bunch of vets, and Duke going with a bunch of five-star freshmen. So this is a fascinating game, and I think both defenses give each other a lot of problems on paper.
Chris, Duke has the highest rated offense in the country, and Houston has the highest rated defense in the country. So what's going to give in this one?
It's going to be a very, very, very interesting one, guys. And Isaac, as you referenced, Duke has a supremely talented team with their five-star freshmen. But there's a fighter named Mike Tyson. And when you have boxing championships you're preparing for, you always have to have a sparring partner. And you bring in someone that looks like the same size, that looks like the same speed, and you replicate what the other fighter's doing. But when you step into the ring, all of a sudden you see Mike Tyson, you're like, oh my God. That's what happened to the University of Tennessee. Right? You talk about the numbers and you're saying, well, Houston, they can't be that good. And you step in the ring with them, and the next thing you know, they don't dunk on your head like the old five slammer jammer teams. They get in your head. That's what they do defensively. You're right. It's going to be a chess match. We're going to see how Kelvin Sampson plays ball screens, right? Because they love that middle ball screen when they throw lobs, shall I say, to Malawatch. And, I'll give Isaac credit. He showed me something the other day I watched during the Alabama game. Con Knippel, a bigger guard, scoring on smaller guards, right? And he had a field day against Alabama. So we'll see what happens. But the thing is, can Duke and Malawatch, can they handle the physicality of Houston inside, what I call college's Dennis Rodman and Joe Tugler? And when Roberts got in foul trouble, Xavier Francis, who used to be a starter, came in and gave them great minutes. So they're going to be fine inside. The question is, will Cooper Flagg plant his flag and show everyone he is the National Player of the Year playing against the Baltimore Ravens of college basketball?
All right, that is fair. But let's dig into a couple points there, because Trotter, you mentioned how Duke doesn't really have a conventional point guard. Chris, you're talking about ball screen defense. One conventional point guard who I think picked this Houston defense apart was Braden Smith. He had 15 assists in that one. Trotter, I was surprised that Houston, who's been a put two on the ball screen defense all season long, meaning they're going to trap the ball handler. They weren't as aggressive closing that trap as I thought. They were kind of putting two on the ball, but just kind of containing Smith, and it gave him some room to close it up. Now, Duke doesn't have anybody like Braden Smith in terms of a sheer distributor. They've got multiple guys who are going to come off pick and roll, whether it's Kneppel, whether it's Flagg. You may see some Tyrese Proctor every now and then. But talk to me about the nuances of that ball screen chess match. Duke with the ball against Houston with the D. Are they going to close the traps more so than we saw last weekend?
Yeah, I think what you brought up with Purdue is fascinating, because Purdue used a lot of rescreening in that game against some of that so that they could get Braden Smith snaking the ball screen again. And that got open threes left and right. And he was really able to stretch them out. He drew that second defender and got that long skip pass across the way for those those 45-degree threes. Like, they were really able to spread them out a little bit more. I thought the rescreening was something that was super smart. And I think John Shire could try to do some of those things as well. Now, I think that the one other underrated part about this is that Duke is going to use a lot of inverted screens as well. It's going to be Cooper Flagg, the screener, that I think might be more important than Cooper Flagg, the ball handler. Because when you get him in the middle of the floor, I think he is the best, kind of like secondary playmaker for this group. Like the no-look passes are sweet, but Duke's ability to stretch the floor, use Flag as a screener, use him to play 4-on-3 a little bit. That is how I think you beat this Houston team. And then I also think, to Chris's point, you got to use Con Knipple again in isolation against LJ Cryer. You're trying to get inverted screens again to get that switch and let him go to work. It's like when I try to beat Houston, I'm trying to use the game plan that Purdue used a little bit with that rescreening that they used a ton. And then the game plan that Texas Tech used with Darian Williams operating as like that booty ball player that can find those small guards and draw two to the ball, find open shooters. Con Knipple has to be their version of Darian Williams in this game if Duke wants to win.
All right, Chris, let's talk about the other perspective. I think the most underrated thing about this year's Houston team is their work on the offensive end of the floor. They're up to number 10 right now in overall offense. They lead the country in three-point shooting at over 39%. Now, conversely, you've got a Duke defense, which has been near the top of college basketball all season long. They're currently 4th overall, but the progression of Kaman Malawach was really evident last weekend. The lid he put on the rim, forget about the number of shots he blocked, but the number of shots he changed, the number of potentially what may look like an easy shot from a shot chart got a whole lot tougher when he's there to challenge it. So my question is this: how does Houston score against this Duke defense, and how do they get points in the paint?
The points in the paint are going to be just extremely tough. But here's what it comes down to with those guys inside. It's going to be hard for Roberts to get that left-handed hook off, but he's going to have to maneuver it. And if booty ball doesn't help in this situation, playing against a shot blocker like Malawach, you're going to have to stretch him out, which those guys don't shoot threes, he and Tucker, so it's going to be tough. You're going to have to put him in ball screens, right? And you're going to have Milos Uzan coming downhill. You're going to have LJ Cryer coming downhill, looking to drive and kick, because this is the tallest team, the longest team in college basketball. They're going to have their strategy. And listen, LJ Cryer cannot struggle this game. This is not the game of struggle. Milos Uzan has bailed them out the last few games, but Sharp in particular making big shots, timely threes. And you got three guys. You can have a great offense when you have three of your primary players shoot over 40% from three. And that's what Houston has. So they have to have a great game plan offensively. I think they have to play a little bit faster, because that's what Duke's going to do. And to the point of where the Duke Blue Devils can work off that ball screen, here's the thing. We can talk all day about what they got to do and rescreen. They don't have Braden Smith. Braden Smith's a first team. He's one of the best guards in the country for a reason. And their strategy was, hey, we're just not going to let Braden have both options. He's going to have to pass and make somebody else beat us. Well, that somebody on Duke's team is a very good player and probably a pro. So that's where the chess match is going to be for Houston. But if they can score on offense, I'm not worried about them on defense, because they're going to play all day long and they're never going to fight. And it's going to be tough to get second shots against this team.
All right, Trotter, it's that time. It's prediction time. Tell me who you got and tell me why.
Yeah, I'm actually really talking myself into Houston in this one. I think that they're not going to let Duke score in transition. I think they have the big guards that you need to match up with Duke on both ends of the floor. I think they got the double big lineup that you need to go up against Duke. So all of those factors, I'm like, all right, it's Houston. I got to talk myself into it. And then I just keep going back to Flag. I just don't think that Houston is going to be able to have that one guy that can fully take him away. They got options to throw at him. Roberts is a great defender. Tugler is one of my favorite defenders in college basketball. But Flag is the ultimate equalizer here, because he makes those tough shots. He makes those great reads. He can get out and really give this team a jolt. I lean Duke. I don't feel great about it. I think this is one of the toughest games of the tournament for Duke coming up right now. Could be even tougher than if they advance to play in the national championship game. This is the toughest game on their slate. This might be the national title game. These might be the best two teams in college basketball.
All
right, Chris, who you got and why?
Listen, a Texas team has never played in Texas in the Final Four, as odd as that may seem. The University of Houston Cougars, when I was a kid, went to 3 straight Final Fours with 5 Slamma Jamma. The Houston Cougars have never won the national championship. And I'm telling you right now, there is no way, being a resident of Houston, Texas, that this team with the toughness and togetherness, I'm going to use my prop right here. Here it is right here. The Scott Street Bullies. There is no way I'm going against H-Town, baby. We're going to bully this way. We're going to take away Duke. All that stuff that Isaac is talking about with Cooper flag, that flag's coming down. And the Cougars will move on. There is no way with the Dream sitting there, with Drexler on the other end, and with the ghost of Guy V. Lewis looking over that angel, that the Houston Cougars are going to let this one get away. Last year, they got lucky with Jamal Shead. This year, it will not be so. They got to face a full roster of Cougars, and they're going to claw this victory and take it away from the Blue Devils.
I was about to make a pitch for Duke and say why I thought they were going to win, but I just don't want to follow that up. So I will say this: if Houston wins, they're going to do it by doing it this way. They're going to need their best play from their guards. That is an absolutely critical piece, and then they've got to make this a late game execution game. We saw in that Purdue game, Houston, they can really execute down the stretch. A beautiful baseline out of bounds play. They get one of a terrific game winner, Kelvin Sampson. Now everybody's going to run that baseline out of bounds play for the foreseeable future in high school and college basketball. Now, Duke, we'll see. They've got the talent. I think they're the most talented team in the tournament, and I would be remiss if I didn't say I think the sophistication of what Duke has run offensively has continued to grow as the season goes on. We're seeing much more advanced concepts as the season gets deeper and deeper than we were earlier in the season. But it still comes down to, can the 18-year-olds execute down the stretch like we've already seen Houston can? Guys, last question for you. Who's your national champion? Trotter, you're up first.
Yeah, Duke Auburn from the beginning. I'm going to ride with it, and I think Duke wins the title. I think the most talented team with the best process this year. No shots at the rim. They create the most unguarded catch and shoot threes. It's the UConn recipe. This is UConn 2.0. I think Duke wins the title.
Chris, who you got?
Hey, guys, I just mentioned where I'm from, my geography. I'm going to raise this up, and there it is right there, just for you. I know what that means, Fink. I'm going H-Town all the way. There is no way that Kelvin Sampson, as I said before, first time, Final Fours in Texas, all of Third Ward, maybe even Beyonce, will be at this Final Four. They're not letting this one get away.
All right. Well, I had Florida over Duke when this whole thing started. I don't feel great about that now, but I can't move off it. I will say this. I think Duke's playing better than anyone. Florida was my pick in the beginning, so we will see. I'm also going to end on this. If Kelvin Sampson wins a national championship, I will be very happy. This guy belongs in the Hall of Fame. This national championship would solidify it, and it's all going to play out here over the course of the next 48 hours for the Final Four, and then, of course, Monday night's championship game. It's going to be one heck of a ride, and we appreciate you staying with us all season long and all tournament long to break down all the matchups.